Radio Free 102.3 KJLH. Good morning. God bless. Welcome to the Front Page Saturday Town Hall edition. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Our topic today, pivot and reinvent. Black businesses post-pandemic. We've got some stellar panelists for you today. And of course, you're always welcome to call us 520-KJLH, 520-5554. Add your area code on first and you can get right in. This town hall meeting meant to talk about how we can survive and even thrive post-pandemic in the new normal as black businesses. We certainly know our enterprises are taking a battering right now. But how can we rise like phoenixes from the ashes and find a way forward? That's what we are focused on today. And I want to thank our sponsors, Council President Emeritus Herb Wesson, the City of Los Angeles, Community Build, and the Independent Professionals Association at indiework.org. We are broadcasting live from the KJLH 1-800-THE Law 2 studio. So pleased to introduce our first guest, distinguished guests at that. Joining us is the Senior Editor-in-Chief of Black Enterprise Magazine. He started from the bottom. Now we're here. Spent quite some time working his way up the ladder to Senior VP, where he is today. Derrick Dingle, welcome to the show. Mr. Dingle, can you hear me? Okay, I think perhaps we're having some technical difficulties, but that will be fixed in just a moment. We also have joining us the social enterprise founder, event marketer, serial entrepreneur. He's the CEO of South LA Brewery, the COO and partner in Kiss and Grind, which is a popular social event marketing enterprise. Born and raised in LA, Craig Bowers. Welcome. Craig Bowers, can you hear me?
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to the Front Page. Is this Craig Bowers?
This is Derrick Dingle. How you doing,
we got
Dominique?
Mr. Dingle on the phone. Great. This physically distant broadcasting has its challenges, but welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you for having me, and I applaud your town hall. It's much needed during these extraordinary times.
Yes, it is. And I mean, of course, this is right in your wheelhouse. We're talking about Black enterprise, literally. How do we reinvent? And I was actually reading an article in Black Enterprise where it's talking about, right now the focus is all on short-term sort of life rafts. How do we survive, the PPP loans and such. But you also say it's not just about short-term. We have to look at long-term investments and how are we going to take our place in the reinvention of the entire U.S. economy.
Yeah, it's time for us to reboot, reinvent, and reimagine our businesses. In terms of talking to a number of business leaders, and in terms of doing our own analysis and looking at past crises, from every crisis comes opportunities. And it's, incumbent upon, African American entrepreneurs to be creative and to identify those opportunities now so that they can, turn them into, thriving businesses in the future.
And hopefully we'll get some insight as we talk today about how to do that. Craig Bowers, are you there now? Can you hear me? Good morning.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great, loud and clear. You've had quite a few different successful entrepreneurial ventures in the course of your career, and probably this is the biggest challenge of our lifetime for any business, especially a POC-owned business, a woman-owned business. Do you see opportunity in this, or is it all downside?
I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, there's always opportunities. It just depends on a lot of factors that, may or may not be under your control. I think if you're sitting on a lot of cash right now, there's a tremendous amount of opportunities. I have a venture that I'm currently trying to get off the ground. Unfortunately, a lot of similar ventures are going to be going out of business in the next 9 to 12 months. It's an opportunity to acquire, fixed assets at potentially $50. Now, that's someone else's grief, but, that's kind of the world of business. So there's always opportunities in downtimes. It's just a matter of whether or not you're positioned to take advantage of those.
I would imagine, a brewing company does well during a pandemic. I've been reading liquor sales are up. And
yes and no. It depends on.
No. Okay.
It depends on what your business model is. So, for example, in the brewing space, there are really 3 different types of outlets. One is selling direct to consumers. Mm-hmm. One is selling to restaurants and bars, which are currently closed. And then the last option is selling at retail. But unfortunately, a lot of the beer sold at retail is dominated by the big beer brands. So your mom and pops aren't really on these store shelves like your Anheuser-Busch's or your Miller Coors. So if your business model primarily revolved around selling directly to consumers at your own tap rooms on site, you're in a big world of hurt right now. The beer businesses that played in all 3 spaces are, hurting a little bit less. But it really, it's really a case-by-case basis.
Derrick Dingle, I want to ask you this. Maybe I should have started here. What is the overview in your view? What are the challenges? What are the things, that we are facing, and what are the opportunities? And, I would ask the same of you also, Mr. Bowers, what does the landscape look like? You've laid it out really clearly in terms of if I'm a liquor company, a beer company, there's different tiers depending on my business model. But, what we keep hearing is that black businesses, minority-owned businesses are having trouble getting the loans, having trouble getting the opportunities and the help that larger companies or, not minority-owned companies are having. But beyond just the loans, what is the outlook? Mr. Bowers, you want to start?
Sure. One of the things I'll say about the PPP process, it kind of revealed some of the shortcomings that we have as people of color-owned businesses inherently, right? So if you're undercapitalized, you don't really have a strong banking relationship in the first place. And when we saw the PPP loans, a lot of those initial loans were going to clients of the banks that had very good relationships with those banks. Another thing about the PPP loans is you needed to have your paperwork in order. So if you didn't have, an immediate dial into your CPA and have those documents available to service for the loan, that was another issue in which, you were further back in line. So really it's about making sure that we have the infrastructure as businesses so that when these things occur, that we're positioned properly in order to take advantage of these things.
Right. I know some people are still getting them. So if you, haven't gotten it together yet, all is not lost. But, I would say you better get it, like you said, get your CPA on speed dial. Mr. Dingle, how do you see the overview of where we are right now, for business, the business landscape in general, but particularly for black business people?
Well, it is an extremely challenging time. So we wrote an article that had a survey that was prepared by Global Strategy Group for Color of Change and Unidos US, and it found that in the nationwide survey, 45% of Black and Latinx businesses and business owners anticipated closing within 6 months of coronavirus. And another 41% had been denied relief assistance. And he had been talking about the PPP program. It's very important to have our entrepreneurs go through the program, get the guidance that they need. This is probably the most beneficial financing program ever for small businesses. But the larger concern in terms of where we are, and first we have to stabilize our businesses and keep them going before we can go through reinvention, is the racial wealth gap. During the last recession, the Great Recession, we saw from 2007 to 2013, according to the Brookings Institution, that the median net worth of African Americans decreased 44% versus 26% for white Americans. And in terms of dollars, in terms of the racial wealth gap, white households had $171,000 versus $17,150 for African Americans. So having our businesses in place is very key to our wealth. It's key to employment, even though 95% of our businesses are sole proprietorships. So it's very important that we shore up black businesses, that we keep them in business, and then as we're keeping them in business, developing strategies so that they can grow and prosper as the economy is remade.
And it's being completely remade, right? I mean, you talk about just something that no one could have anticipated, pretty much an entire do-over for the economy. So it's not just black businesses that are changing their model. It's all businesses. And the point is, how do we fit in? How do we stay alive and maybe even thrive?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, one, looking at your business not in a narrow sense, but looking at it, looking at all the things that your business can service and who it can service, and then getting in touch and in tune with your customers to find out their needs. And an example of that is, of course, in the restaurant business. No longer can see your company as a restaurant. You must see your business as a food services business, or even in a larger sense, a services business. Delivery of groceries, having videos for food preparation for your customers. If you have certain recipes, showing people how they can produce that. And then also, I think this is a critical time where we foster more partnerships. One of the big thrusts of Black Enterprise pre-COVID was scaling our businesses to size so that we could take advantage of opportunities. I think now it is more vital to find those complementary relationships with other businesses so that you can serve a range of clients, and then also grow as opportunities come online. And then also, I think it's going to be critical if you're a B2B business to have those alliances, especially at a time when a number of corporations are changing the terms of their payment terms. So you need to have partners that can also help you financially fortify your business while you go through this period.
What's your advice, Craig Bowers? I mean, you've had more than one type of business. What's your advice to business owners right now as far as how to reinvent, how to pivot, ways to be creative?
One thing I will say is for the business owners that are out there, there's a lot of free resources to help you navigate this time, right? And one thing I'll give a shout out to is your local small business development center. Those are called SBDCs. They're an adjunct of the federal SBA program, so your federal tax dollars pay for these programs. And, they have classes that go down to very specific, industry groups. How to pivot your restaurant during COVID-19, how to pivot your retail business during COVID-19. So, to the business owners that are out there, I would say, please try and avail yourselves of these resources that are out there. I think there are a lot of institutions, local, state and federal that are trying to help these businesses. But I don't think a lot of those institutions are good at identifying who's out there. So definitely get on Google and see what's out there that you're able to take advantage of, just in terms of learning how to navigate through not only this crisis, but to also take advantage of these financial programs that are out there.
Yeah, we have a lot of them listed at KJLHradio.com. Mr. Dingle, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. We spend a lot of time focused on PPP, but there are other programs out there. We had an article from a retired Harvard professor, Steve Rogers. It's called "Black Business. Please take the PPP money." Because a number of folks haven't applied, but also within that article, we listed 13 other resources that you can go through, grant programs, public and private grant programs, whether it's Facebook Small Business, Verizon has a program, Salesforce, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. What has been very heartening during this period is to see the number of black business leaders who have stepped up to provide financing. For example, yesterday, Marvin Ellison, the CEO of Lowe's, mentioned a $25 million grant program specifically for minority businesses. And Marvin Ellison is one of four African-American CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So I think, as you go through this reinvention period, you will need capital. As you go through the stabilization period, you'll need capital. And you should access as many of these sources as possible. And as Greg says, the MBDAs, small business resource centers throughout the nation, with Urban League runs a number of them. The U.S. Black Chamber runs a number of them throughout the country. You should access all those services to help you shore up your business and then guide you to how you can take advantage of the new economy.
My friend Marie Deary, who's a financial advisor, says the same thing to me. We are disqualifying ourselves. We're saying, I won't get a PPP because I don't have employees, or I don't have enough employees, or this or that. Instead of applying and letting them reject us, we're rejecting ourselves before we even get in the pipeline.
Yeah, and it requires, once again, I heard Craig as I was unable to get on the line, but he talked about relationships. That is critical. And I think this is the time to bolster those banking relationships. In fact, the individuals and the companies that have gotten the PPP loans have been the customers that banks know. They have gotten the first tranche of the financing. So, and then for African-American businesses, because so many of our businesses are smaller entities and sole proprietorships, we need to go to community banks, minority depository institutions, community development financial institutions. In fact, the second round of PPP money, there was a carve-out for those specific institutions so that minority businesses and smaller businesses can gain the funding that they weren't gaining from the larger institutions.
That's where you can get those relationships, right? I mean, it's where they don't send you online or you don't get lost in a giant pool.
Yeah, the banks that are on our BE bank list, and what I'm proud of them is that they are willing to spend the time with businesses and walk through the loan process. Pre-COVID, and just in terms of trying to gain bank loans, we tend to opt out. In fact, 77% of black-owned businesses use self-financing for their businesses to either start their business or to grow their businesses, versus 20% of white-owned businesses. And you can't grow your business using your own money. You have to have other resources to grow and expand. And that's why we have so many sole proprietorships, because you don't have the financial resources to grow. And I think where there are programs and resources available to you, And then also I talk about partnerships. Partnerships can also bring in financial resources. You should do so.
Mm. Time flies when you're learning a lot. I'm taking notes here. Craig Bowers, what would you leave us with this morning from your perspective?
I would leave with some more future looking stuff. Our brewery is going to be located in South Central in an opportunity zone, and that's something that I'm not hearing a lot of Black and brown people talk about excitedly, particularly when it comes to business owners, and we're talking about getting access to capital. This is a program that was a part of Donald Trump's 2018 tax cut. And a lot of people are doing very big projects around the Opportunity Zone program. And I'd like to see more Black and brown business owners figure out how to position themselves to take advantage of that, of those investment dollars that are out there flowing into Opportunity Zone businesses as well as real estate investments. So if you're out there and you Google, Opportunity Zone programs, there's some real opportunities there, particularly if you're trying to scale up your business with more capital.
That's a great point. We're living in the opportunity zones. We might as well benefit from it. Craig Bowers, thank you for that thought, and thank you for being with us this morning. Mr. Dingle, what would you leave us with this morning?
Yeah, I want to leave with some optimism. In having covered Black businesses over the past 30 years, what has always driven us has been our ingenuity and our energy. I think we just have to apply the tools. I would, in addition to trying to gain finances and looking at the different opportunities out there, apply digital technology to your businesses. Technology is going to be the driver of the remade economy. And that's going to have to be fully embraced in terms of e-commerce models, marketing, distribution, and operations. And then secondly, I want to stress the fact that we should develop partnerships. If larger companies can come together to create a model where 1 + 1 = 5, our companies can do the same. And we can, in turn, employ more people and have a greater impact on our communities.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to continue our conversation, but thank you, Derrick Dingle of Black Enterprise Magazine and Craig Bowers of South LA Brewing Company, LLC. More straight ahead. It's the front page, 520 KJLH. You can get in on this conversation. It's radio free, 102.3 KJLH.